Have you ever wondered if it's necessary to major in actuarial science to become an actuary? Or if you can major in things like finance, statistics, or data science? Hi, my name is Bella-the-Actuary, and in today's video, I'll be talking about what it's like to major in actuarial science. Just last month, I graduated college with degrees in actuarial science and risk management and insurance. So I'll be sharing what kind of things I learned in my actuarial classes and even be showing you some of the projects that I worked on. Let's start off by talking about the classes that I took during college. Because I was an actuarial science major, I was required to take actuarial specific courses, such as loss models, financial mathematics. These types of classes actually really helped me to prepare for the actuarial exams P and FM. I found that a lot of my actuarial classes had practice problems and even exam questions from past actuarial exam sittings, which of course helped us to prepare for the actual actuarial exams. Now, my specific program at my school, which was UW-Madison, offered these 1-credit courses that were specifically to prep you for exams. Like, you would get a set of questions each week that you would have to work on and figure out, and then at the end of the week, you would submit them and find out the solutions. I did end up taking one of these classes, which I did find helpful, but I do think that generally my actuarial classes were not as hard as the actual actuarial exams. If you're familiar with coaching actuaries and their earned level, I would give my actuarial classes an earned level of 2 or 3 and the actual exams a 5 or 6. So by the end of the semester, by the time that I finished my actuarial classes, I would still have a good amount of studying to do to actually prepare for the exams. But my classes really helped me understand the foundations of what I was learning. And even though I'm saying that my actuarial classes were an earned level of 2 or 3, that doesn't mean that they were easy. I was still learning all of the actuarial content for the very first time. But having taken exams P and FM, looking back, I can say that compared to the actual exam difficulty, the classes were not as hard as the actual exam. Now, at my university, actuarial science was located within the business school.
Tell them to bring me my money. Yeah!
So not only was I required to take actuarial science classes, but I was also required to take business courses such as finance, accounting, and business law. At the end of the day, I did find these types of business courses to be really helpful in my overall understanding of how an insurance company works, how the business world works, how all the different departments in an insurance company connect together, and how they all influence each other. I've said this before, but it's one thing to be able to do actuarial math and, work in Excel, work in coding programs, but it's another thing to be able to understand what you're doing, why you're doing it, and how it impacts the overall company and society. Lastly, my actuarial science program offered advanced coding/machine learning courses for us to take, and I took 2 of these, and I found them to be really, really helpful in improving and developing my coding skills in Python and RStudio. Most of the data sets and problems that we worked on in these classes had insurance applications, so we weren't just doing problems that any old coding course would teach you. We were actually figuring out how to apply these coding techniques onto real insurance problems. I'll also be showing a couple of projects from these 2 classes later in this video. Now let's talk about the social aspect of majoring in actuarial science. I really liked that all of my professors were credentialed actuaries. Instead of just regular statisticians, they all were either FSAs or FCASs. And because of this, they had really valuable insights about what they were teaching because of the experience they had working as an actuary and doing research in the field. I also really liked being able to go to office hours because when I'm learning something new, I have a lot of questions and I need a lot of explanation and walkthroughs. And so being able to go to office hours and talk to my professors who were previously actuaries was very helpful because they were able to explain things in a way that made actuarial sense. I also really liked being able to connect with other actuarial science students and relate to their actuarial journey. I feel like if you were to major in something like statistics, not everybody who's majoring in statistics is going to be an actuary. So it can be hard to make friends who want to go in the same career field as you do. Majoring in actuarial science also kind of gave me a head start in terms of networking and making those actuarial connections, just because of the fact that I could connect with my actuarial professors and my actuarial peers. My school also had its own actuarial science club, which wasn't exclusive to actual science majors. However, most of the members were actual science majors, which makes sense. But in the actual science club, we got to hear from employers, we got to attend networking events with local companies, and there was even an exam scholarship to cover the cost of sitting for actual exams. I think most schools have an actual science club, so even if you're not majoring in actual science specifically, I would definitely recommend joining an actual science club. That way you can network with other actual students, you can hear from local actual employers, and overall just learn more about the actual career and see if it's really what you want to pursue. Overall, it definitely is possible to become an actuary without majoring in actual science specifically, but I do think a lot of the opportunities that I've had wouldn't have been possible without me majoring in actual science. Especially as someone who came into college not even knowing what a deductible was, having that actuarial community and the specific resources in my program was really beneficial to me. If you are interested in majoring in actual science, I would highly recommend going to a CAE, which stands for Center of Actuarial Excellence. You can find all the schools that are CAEs on the SOA website. Basically, what this means is that if a school is labeled as a CAE, it is very highly ranked for its actual science program. So you'll find classes specific to actual science, you'll find exam prep, and a bunch of good actual resources. So it's not to say that you can't learn a ton without majoring in actual science, but I do think majoring in actual science will make it a lot easier. If you were to major in finance, I do think that it would really help you in preparing for exam FM, just because that exam is literally called financial mathematics and it has a lot to do with bonds and annuities, which is what a lot of finance is. If you were to major in statistics, I think that would really help you in preparing for exam P, because that has to do a lot with statistics and different distributions. If you were to major in data science, I don't know if it would necessarily help you prepare for any specific exam, but it definitely would help you build up your coding skills, which is definitely something that actuaries need in the workplace. There are some things in the data science major that would be helpful for the actual exams, but there's not like one exam that majoring in data science would be helpful for. Data science might also be a great option if you're not completely sure that you want to be an actuary, just because you're not as limited. You can still branch out a bit more if you major in something like data science instead of actuarial science. Like I mentioned in my 10 things I wish I knew about actuarial science before I started studying it video, actuarial science is a very niche field. So if you're not at least 90% sure that you want to be an actuary, and even if you are, your mind can always change, it doesn't hurt to major in something else. Feel free to watch that video if you want to hear more about this. Let's say you were to major in mathematics. Obviously, this would help you with doing calculations on the actual exams, but you really wouldn't get any of that insurance knowledge, so it might not give enough support in that regard. I would love to hear in the comments below from anyone who did not major in actual science specifically, but is now working as an actuary. How was that experience for you? So let me show you all some of the actual projects that I worked on during college. This first project was for my Gen Biz 656 class, which was about machine learning for business analytics. So basically for this project, it was from a Kaggle data science competition, which if you're not familiar with Kaggle, I've mentioned it in a few of my other videos. It gives you really good practice for doing coding. And we were looking at some data from a bunch of different stores and trying to predict future sales based on some different variables. So I did this with my friend Jabina. This is just the report that we came up with. You can pause and read it aloud if you want to. We created this heat map to kind of look at the correlations between different variables, created some bar charts, and then we ran some different models. So we did OLS, which is least squares regression, we did lasso regression, random forest, and gradient boosting. So those were 4 different types of models that we ran, and we wanted to see which one would basically give us the lowest error. So we ended up using the random forest model because it gave us the lowest amount of error. And here was the actual code that we ran in Python. I'll zoom in here. So we split the data sets that we were given into the training and test data. We cleaned up the data, removed some of the data due to errors, making dummies. Then we did some exploratory analysis to take a look at the data, see if we could find anything interesting. But yeah, this is where we created the heat map and the bar chart to basically look at the different stores in our data set and look at the amount of sales. So as you can see, the stores in cluster 5 had the largest amount of sales. And this was a scatter plot to look at the kind of correlation between a store having a sale or promotion and the number of sales or revenue it had. As you can see from this graph, it really doesn't look like as a store offers higher promotions that the sales increase. And then this is where we ran the different 4 models, and we ran a validation set, and then looked at the test data with the random forest model. This project is one that I did just this past semester in my risk analytics class, which was basically the second semester extension of that machine learning class project that I had just showed you before. This one was fun because it specifically had an insurance application. So in this project, we were predicting hail damage losses. So we took some data that we had, again, split it into the testing and training data. We had a histogram of the paid losses, and I'm pretty sure we log transformed these just to make the data a bit less skewed. Again, we did a heat map here. We looked at the correlations between them just to kind of give us more than just a visual for the correlations between each of the variables. And just to explain this heat map a little bit, basically the tiles with a darker color have the highest correlation. So if you're seeing either a bright red or a dark purple or close to those colors, it means that it has a high correlation. Obviously, the diagonal in the middle has perfect 1.0 correlation because it is just each variable correlated with itself. So it's going to be 1. So as you can see, I think we looked at shingle roof and building limit because that one had a bit of a higher correlation. We looked at the AIC, which is kind of like an error, did a PIT test. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, and comment down below if you have any questions, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!